Alrighty, legends. Here we are. SPAC is back for another episode. It's been a minute. It's been a wild friggin' year. And considering today's the last day of November, we're about to roll into the final month of 2025. Where's all that time gone? I feel like today is a beautiful opportunity for me to reflect on the year that has been, to share some lessons and blessings that have come as a result of this year, and to trust that that's going to inspire you wherever you're at in your journey. This year, I've achieved some massive milestones, some things that I never would have previously imagined myself to have achieved. I've launched and finished writing my new book, Venture Beyond Limitation. I've earned more money this year than I have in any other year. I've invested in my own brand new car and paid it off in full. And I've been able to spend a lot of quality time with my loved ones. But at the same time, despite having achieved all of these things, I've noticed myself feeling restless, feeling empty, isolated, alone, confused, frustrated, like I'm not where I'm meant to be. So, this is a reminder that if you're in a situation right now that feels like you're not living the life you're meant to be living, I want to remind you that I believe that's part of the journey too. So, what I've been learning over these last few months specifically is to have a sharp vision towards the future, something that I'm going after intentionally. But to remember that the timeline that I have in my own mind isn't always going to be the timeline that God or the universe has in store for me. So if you're in a situation at the moment where you're doing all the right things, you're showing up as best as you possibly can, but life doesn't seem to be meeting you there. Things don't seem to be unfolding in the way you're hoping for them to unfold or the timeline that you have in mind. I think this episode is going to resonate with you because this is where I find myself right now. So this month of November, since I've gotten back from my road trip that I've done, it's been a hectic month. I feel like I've really had no space to even breathe and to take a step back and to reflect on the month and the year. But I do see a lot of value in taking that time to step back and to reflect and to ask myself, am I living in a way that I'm proud of? Am I living a life to impress others, to please others? Or am I living a life that I'm proud of and happy with? And I think it can be easy to get caught up in believing that life is always meant to be happy and full of joy and full of positivity. But I think a part of the experience that we're all navigating through is to embrace the lows as well. When I was writing this book, to take this from an idea, many different ideas, into something structured, there were so many times where I doubted myself and I thought, what am I doing? I'm way out of my league here to write a book. Who am I to write a book? And now that it's finished, I am genuinely proud of what I've created. But it's also very strange because now there's this big empty void because I've finished this massive big creative project and a part of me is already thinking, what's next? Or now I've got to get it out there and share it with the world. But I also recognize that my nervous system is exhausted, fried. It's been a big year. And it feels impossible sometimes to be genuinely satisfied with where I am. Not impossible. It's not impossible. But it feels like even where I get to where I think I want to be, there's a part of me that is seeking that next thing already. And maybe that's just a part of the experience as well. Maybe that's part of being human. But in today's episode, I want to really allow this to be a form of self expression. Because when I first started my podcast, it was when I was the free spirited traveler living over in Portugal. And I had the time and the space to sit down and reflect and express my own internal experience. And it's something that I found a lot of joy in. And it also brought up a lot of insecurities, fears, doubts, concerns about how other people were going to perceive me. But the more I express myself, the more I allow myself to be seen as I am, the more I come to accept who I am in this moment now. With that being said, I see immense value within having a vision in my mind's eye of the man that I am becoming and aligning who I am now with that version of me. That might sound a little esoterical or woo woo, but it's actually pretty simple. Who is that man that I'm becoming? How does he live? What values does he embody? How does he show up for himself? How does he treat others? How does he treat himself? And am I living as him now? Most of the time, I'm not. Most of the time, I'm reverting to old patterns of the past. But a part of Venture Beyond Limitation, the book that I've written, is about venturing beyond those limitations from the past, aligning yourself with who you're becoming and building that momentum and moving forward in a way that feels inspiring, that feels energizing. And people can feel that as well. People are inspired by that. So there did come a point where the content that I was creating, the podcasts that I was sharing were becoming too much about teaching and trying to be perceived in a certain way or wearing that hat of the mentor or the coach too heavily to the point where it didn't feel as much like self-expression as it did when I first started out. And as I was writing this book, I was writing the book, I was working a full-time job, I was mentoring my clients, and still trying to create quality content and share it with the world. And it just became too much. I had to take a step back. And so I'm glad that I did. But even now that the book has been finished, there's a part of me that still feels resistance towards sharing content, towards recording videos, because when I feel like I'm recording content or putting content out there to make something happen, to sell a product, it takes away from the enjoyment and the freedom that comes from self expression. So, this is why I actually love a podcast style format where I can allow myself to sit down and reflect on my life experiences and share them and trust that in doing that, it will resonate and land with anyone that needs to hear it. And if it means that some people want to read my book as a result, that's a win too. The other big pillar of my life in 2025 that I've had to really get clear on is relationships. Relationships and location. I really feel as though those are the two biggest decisions that you'll make in life. Who you want to spend the rest of your life with, where you want to situate yourself, and really what kind of work you want to do. Those are big life decisions that are worthy of some serious consideration. In the past, I've been the kind of person that has had a lot of friends, been fairly social, but also been fairly shy at the same time. And in terms of serious relationships, I've really only had two serious relationships, both long distance with women that lived in other countries that moved over to Australia to be here with me. And the relationships challenged me in many ways, really stretched me, really brought to light some patterns and ways of thinking and expressing that were not so healthy and productive. And I believe these relationships that I've been in as well have really helped me see myself in a new way as well and strengthen the relationship that I have with myself. Because growing up, I learned that me being nice and keeping the peace is what helped me smooth sail my way through life. And it actually was something that I took pride in, being easygoing and flexible. It was as though people respected and accepted me when I was being that way. However, as I grew up, I started to notice how this way of being led to me actually not speaking up when something bothered me and not being honest about how I really felt and holding back aspects of myself in order to make other people feel comfortable. Or so I thought. So being in these relationships really brought all of that to light. The ways in which I would shrink, withdraw, shut down, and then become frustrated when I did something wrong and it upset someone else, because I would have this tendency of withholding certain things that frustrated me. But when someone brought up something that frustrated them, that would irritate me even more because of all of the things that I'd buried. So learning to speak truthfully and honestly, learning to own my own internal experience, learning to get clear on my values, on who I am as a person, on who I am becoming, my vision for the future. These have all been integral parts of me moving forward in an empowering way. Because in relationships, it can be very easy to play the victim card and to focus on all of the ways that your partner is not supporting you, all the things that they're doing wrong. But what about the part of you that is allowing that to continue? What about the part of you that is accepting that this is the way that things are? Because at the end of the day, these past couple relationships that I've been in, I had to make the decision to walk away and to choose myself, which was not an easy decision on either occasion. But looking back now, it was the right decision. It was a decision that brought me closer to myself. And it's a decision that I'm glad I made when I did. And in both cases, it was probably a decision that needed to be made a lot earlier than it was. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. So I invite you to consider if right now you're in a relationship or a job or a situation that deep down, there's a part of you that knows that it's a bit off. There's a part of you that may think that, is this ever really going to get better? And there's a part of you that maybe is just holding onto the hope that it does. But what if it doesn't? What if you were to waste valuable years of your life in the hope that things are going to get better, only to find out that they never did? So this is why, coming back to those pillars, the person you choose to be with, the place you choose to live, the work you choose to do, these are a few life decisions that I've been giving a lot of attention to lately. Big decisions. And with the relationships, there's been so many times in my life where it's felt like I'm the one that's keeping things alive. And the moment that I stop putting energy towards someone, it fizzles. And that is a bit disappointing and disheartening, but at the same time, that's clarity. See, there are people that want to be chased and there are people that want to be chosen. I think it's human to want to be chosen. But when you're wanting someone to chase you, it's typically out of insecurity. It's typically because you're seeking some sense of validation and approval from them chasing you. And are you a bad person because of it? No, you're not. But it's very important to consider whether you want to be chosen or whether you want to be chased. Because often the person that wants to be chased is the person that doesn't feel like they can be chosen. It's often the person that hasn't actually chosen themselves in the first place. So there's something beautiful and powerful about choosing yourself because it invites other people to choose you. It means that you won't abandon yourself to stay with someone that hasn't fully chosen you. Because you'll know when someone chooses you, they'll make it known that they're choosing you. You won't have to second guess. You won't have to question what their intentions are because they're clear on who they are. They've chosen themselves. They've chosen to get to know themselves. And that gives them the capacity to choose you. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a guru. I definitely don't have it all figured out. But I do believe that life is a game that's played from the inside out. I believe that you choose yourself first. You choose to get to know yourself. You choose to accept yourself and love yourself. And that allows and invites others to meet you there and to choose you too. But it must start and come from within. That's my humble opinion. I could be wrong. I'm willing to be challenged on that. And so it's interesting because I find myself in this funk at times where I feel a bit lonely, a bit disconnected, or a bit uncertain about things in life. And I look around and I see people that are in relationships and that have families and that are married. And sometimes I question, is that going to happen for me? I think it's normal to question things. And in the same breath, I remind myself that that's already a done deal. And it's not always what it's cracked up to be. There are challenges that come with being in a serious relationship. There are challenges that come with being a parent that I have no idea about yet. So I'm reminded to enjoy the season that I'm in right now, being single, being fairly free, not having too many things that are tying me down to a particular place. And that's why, bringing me to the next point, location is something that may arguably be more important to solidify before the whole relationship thing. Because I'm born and bred in Canberra. If you've been to Canberra before, you probably know what I'm talking about when I say that it's like a big country town. There's things that I love about Canberra, and there's things that make me want to get the heck out of Canberra today. And I think Canberra is a great place for building a routine and having that consistency. And for me, since coming back from living overseas in 2023, I've been now back here in Canberra for the last 2 years, over 2 years now. And I've accomplished some pretty epic things. I've written my book. I've bought myself a new car. I've got a really solid financial foundation, which was one of the goals that I had coming back, was to create more stability. But now I've noticed how it's a bit mundane, it's predictable, it's repetitive, it's Groundhog Day. And I'm getting to the point where my soul is craving change, something new, something that is more free. So I had this trip booked for most of the year. I was going to do a road trip up to the sunny coast in October. And sadly, early October, my beautiful Nan, God bless her soul, she passed away. And that was a huge loss for my family because she was such a ray of sunshine in our lives. And it just happened to be that that was very close to my trip. And so we had the funeral the day before I was set to leave. And I was contemplating not going because I felt as though it was important for me to be there to support my family, especially my mum. And my dad said, look, I think you should go. I think it'll be good for you. We've got each other. Everything's going to be okay. And so I trusted in that. And it was a sad time, but it was also a time that brought my family together, and it really put things in a perspective. And I remember the weekend that my nan passed, I was running around, creating content like a madman, getting everything ready for my book launch. And then on the Sunday, my dad came home and he'd found my nan. And he said, yeah, your nan has died. And it was a shock. It was a shock because I was talking to her the day before, and it was a real shock to the system. And then after the shock came the sadness, and yeah, it was a really difficult time, but it was also a really beautiful time to see how people came together to support my family and I. And the funeral service was beautiful. My mum shared some beautiful words, and I got up and was able to share some beautiful memories from my nan and the time that I got to spend with her. So despite all of that, I still went on my road trip up to the sunny coast, and I'd felt called up to the sunny coast for a while. I didn't really know why. I'd never been there before. I'd been up to the Gold Coast and Cairns, and if you're not familiar with Australia, we're talking up in Queensland, which is up north. So I did my road trip, caught up with my cousin on the way, stopped in a beautiful little town called Yamba, a really beautiful coastal town, which I loved as well. And then arrived in the Sunshine Coast, and it was a bit disappointing because the day that I was driving from Yamba to the Sunshine Coast, the rain was bucketing down. And the day before that in Yamba was just perfect sunny weather. And I kind of assumed that it was going to be like that for the whole week. And then when I got to the sunny coast, it was raining, and it was really a huge letdown in terms of the weather. But obviously that was outside of my control. And I allowed myself to settle in and to go and explore. And as soon as I went and I started exploring, I was in my element. The way that I'll describe it is you've got the beach, big, beautiful beaches there, a skate park out the front of the beach, showers at the beach so you can rinse your board and rinse your wetsuit, and free 4-hour parking in front of all of the beaches. Like, you wouldn't see that anywhere in Sydney. In Sydney, you got to pay. Maybe Maroubra, you can get free parking. But in most places in Sydney, it's jam-packed. You've got to pay for parking. It's ridiculously expensive. So there was just a slower pace to the sunny coast lifestyle that resonated with me deeply. And when I went up there, my intention was to explore, to see if that was a place that I would want to live. And pretty quickly it became apparent that that is where I want to live, at least for my next season. Because like I said, these are important life decisions, where you're going to choose to live. And in terms of me starting a family of my own, yes, Canberra has many great things about it in terms of starting a family, but Sunshine Coast was just beautiful. I've got into surfing a lot this year, bought a couple of my own boards, but being landlocked in Canberra, it's such a mission to get down to the coast just for a weekend to get out for a surf. And then there's the possibility that the waves aren't going to be that great either. So for me, living by the beach is definitely the vibe for 2026. And now there are other pieces of the puzzle that are aligning in order for me to get up there sooner rather than later. But I'm also noticing how since being back from that trip, it's been quite the contrast to come back and to be going to my full-time job here in Canberra and back into that rinse and repeat way of life, which let me be honest, it's great. I've been so consistent with my training this year. I'm in better shape than I've ever been in before. And I've been able to achieve a lot. But life sometimes feels too repetitive and stale. And being up there in the sunny coast was really a freeing experience and a lifestyle that I definitely see myself aligning with very quickly and finding a lot of joy in that lifestyle as well. So that's the vision for 2026, to relocate up to the sunny coast. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's important that I do that in a way that makes sense and that is sustainable and not impulsive. I could be up there tomorrow if I wanted, but let's be real. It's the last month of 2025 here in Canberra, and it's the festive season. It's a time where family comes together. And ironically, the weather here in Canberra is just absolute rubbish. I've never experienced so much wind and so much rain one moment, cloudy skies the next, a bit of sun here and there, and then massive wind gusts. Maybe that's everywhere in the world, but it seems to be only Canberra at the moment. And so that as well is more of an invitation to relocate to the coast up north, where the weather most of the year round is beautiful. So I'm excited about that. But at the same time, I'm frustrated because I'd like to be there tomorrow. And it feels like now I'm planting all of the seeds to get me up there as soon as I can. And I'm watering those seeds every day, but it also feels like things aren't eventuating as quickly as I'd like them to. And as a result, I'm feeling frustration and I'm feeling doubt and I'm feeling as though maybe I'm not going to get up there on the timeline that I envision for myself. But as I reflect and kind of sit with all of it, I realize that there are just a lot of open loops in my life right now. And sometimes those open loops can bring up so much uncertainty that it leads me to believe that it's not going to happen in the way that I want it to happen. But often it's going to unfold exactly as it's meant to, and it's going to be even better than I could have envisioned it in my mind. Most of my travel experiences traveling around the world unfolded in that way. There was a lot of uncertainty. I wasn't sure how things were going to unfold, but the experiences that I had were far better than I had even envisioned them to be in the first place. So let's see how that unfolds. And it brings me now to my next point, which is another huge life decision, the kind of work that you're going to choose to be doing. This is something that is very important as well. And over the last year and a half, I've taken on a full-time role working and serving the public here in Australia in a very meaningful role that is also very challenging. And the people that I'm supporting on a daily basis have been through some really tough experiences in their life. And this role, despite it being well-paying, a big focus on well-being, a lot of stability, it's also very mentally and emotionally exhausting. And I've also been working a lot of overtime. And me taking on this full-time role has meant that I've not had as much capacity to pour into creating content and to building up my business and to sharing more through this podcast. And it feels like the time that I have to do what I really want to do is very limited. And it's interesting because when it comes to business, especially with the work that I do, the clients that I mentor, it simply can't come from a place of pressure and performance and force and trying to make things work. I've done that in the past where I've said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go all in on building my business. But that's gotten me to a point where I'm kind of forcing outcomes and it's not feeling good. It's not feeling energizing. It doesn't feel freeing. It feels like I'm putting myself into a box. But the ironic part is me getting this job now feels like I'm putting myself back into another box. And maybe life is about putting yourself into certain boxes and breaking out of the boxes and then putting yourself into another box. Maybe that is what life is, perhaps. But I think we can be sold certain lies out there on the internet that building a business is the most freeing thing that you can do. Because for most people, what they end up doing is just building themselves another job that maybe doesn't even pay as well as the job that they were in. And there's a lot more unpredictability and risk involved with building a business, depending on what kind of business model you choose. So the reason that I'm sharing this is because it's getting to a point where this current job that I'm in, despite it being rewarding, despite it being meaningful work and paying really well, it's taking its toll on me. I'm working hard. I'm mentally and emotionally exhausted. And I feel like life a lot of the time is quite serious. And I think it really is important to experience joy and excitement and fulfillment in whatever it is that you do. And even if that's not in your work, then something outside of that brings you that joy. And for me this year, that has been surfing. It's been writing this book. It's been sharing content in a way that feels freeing, like this, through this format where it is more self-expression. That's been kind of chilling out, watching some funny shows with my family, sitting around the dinner table, having good conversations with them, getting out on the electric scooter, going for a ride, doing my bodyweight training in the morning. These have been things that have really anchored me in what matters and helped me get through the difficult work that I do and the challenging days that I have. And I just can't sit here and sugarcoat my life. It's conflicting because there's a part of me that feels like no matter where I get, no matter how much I achieve, there's always going to be this part of me that desires something more, that isn't fully satisfied with who or where I am now. And sometimes that can create a lot of internal tension because then I become hard on myself and I feel guilty for, dude, you've got it all. You've got everything that you once dreamed of and you're still not satisfied. You still want something more. And then I become judgmental towards myself for that. But I think it is possible for me to hold both. It is possible for me to be grateful for who and where I am now and to still go after something in life that excites me. And it's okay to get frustrated when I'm not where I think I want to be, ideally. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel it all, but just don't identify too heavily with it. Because for me, I can get stuck in really limiting patterns. I can get stuck in deep downward spirals in my mind. But often what really helps me is expressing and having a conversation with someone that is genuinely willing to listen and that is genuinely willing to just have a conversation. They don't necessarily need to tell me a solution or help me figure it all out, but often just expressing and connecting with another individual is enough for me to come out of that downward spiral. So I think it is a beautiful journey that I'm on, that you're on, that we're on. And I think it can be easy to get caught up in where we should be or the things that we don't have or all of the wild things that are happening out there in the world, all of the war, the destruction, the control. That is important to be considerate of. It's important to be aware of that, but it can also be very consuming. It can really be exhausting. And at the end of the day, you and I, we have a certain bandwidth. We can only handle a certain amount. And I think it is valuable to bite off more than you can chew and chew like crazy and keep on chewing. But at the same time, if you're getting burnt out, if you're constantly serious, if you can't have a laugh, if you can't settle down, if you can't relax and embrace where you are now, then what's the point of biting off more and trying to chew even more? At some point, you're going to have to take a step back. At some point, you're going to have to reevaluate the way you're leading your life. At some point, you're going to have to cut some ties. You're going to have to cut off some relationships and pull your energy back. And what you might find is that those people that you were pouring your energy into, they disappear. It turns to ash. And from that, something more real, someone that genuinely values you and chooses you, can come in because there's space. You have capacity. But when I pour energy into people and things that I don't feel are reciprocal, it gets to a point where I'm going to pull my energy back. I'm not going to pour my energy into someone that isn't going to meet me halfway. And when I pull my energy back, it dissolves into nothing. And that gives me the clarity that it was never meant to be in the first place. So if you're in a relationship, a job, a situation right now where you feel like you're giving your absolute all, but you don't feel like there's any reciprocation, then it's worth really asking yourself whether that is worthy of your valuable energy. Because like I said, we all have a limited capacity. We can all only achieve so much in one day. We all only have a certain amount of energy to give to every day. And if you're giving your energy to distractions, to people, to activities that deplete you, then it's going to make life far more difficult. It's going to make where you want to go that much more challenging than if you were to pour that energy into yourself, into people, into experiences that expand you, that stretch you, that give you a sense of fulfillment and nourishment. And at the end of the day, there are going to be things that you've got to do that are going to deplete you, that are inevitable. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to go. But I think that we can all get to where we want to go in a way that respects ourselves and the people around us, and in a way that is actually energizing rather than depleting. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the ground. We're all going to end up turning to dust at some point in the future. That's the one inevitable that none of us are exempt from. So do with that what you will. That could make today much more meaningful if you recognize that tomorrow isn't promised. It could give you permission to be a little kinder to yourself, to be a little easier on yourself. And some people do need to be a bit kinder to themselves. And some people need to be a little bit more hard on themselves because some people are just complacent. Some people want to blame others for their problems, for their shortcomings. But that, in my opinion, is pretty damn disempowering. So this has been an enjoyable episode for me to record. I'm going to land the plane here. There's no huge revelation to come from this episode. But wherever you are, I hope that today's episode has resonated with you in some way. I hope there's something that you've been able to listen to within this episode that has stoked a fire within you, that has sparked something within you. And I hope that you are kind to yourself and to others. And I wish you the absolute best for the rest of 2025. The final month, December, let's go. It has been an epic year, and I'm pumped for 2026. So I wish you the best for 2026 as well. I hope that you and your family are safe throughout the festive season. And remember that the end of the year and the start of a new year is a beautiful time of transition. And so I love to use this as an opportunity to reflect on what has worked really well this year. How have I held myself back this year? What thought patterns, what behaviors have limited me this year? And what do I want to carry into 2026? What's worked well? What do I want to take into the new year? What do I want to leave behind? And how am I choosing to show up for myself and for others? These are all things that you and I have control over. So that's what this time of the year means for me. It's a time to be with family, to be with loved ones, to really soak it all up and to recognize that this could be the last year that I have with my grandparents, my dad's side of the family. My pop's 97, 96. He's going to be 97 on the 4th of Jan. He's an absolute beast. I believe that he's going to go well beyond 100. But it's also that possibility in the back of my mind, this could be the last Christmas that I have with them. So I'm going to soak it up, and I invite you to do the same. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of this journey. If you are interested, like I said, I have written and released my new book, Venture Beyond Limitation. It's something that I'm incredibly proud of. If anything from today's episode has resonated with you, there's a lot more in this book that I trust will. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram to grab your copy. It currently isn't publicly available. It's still at the early reader rate for a select group of readers. So if it's something that you're excited about, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to share the link with you so you can pick up your copy. And I'll see you in the next episode. I don't know when that'll be. Maybe it'll be from the sunny coast when I've moved up there. These episodes have been very spontaneous, but let's see what happens. Have a beautiful day. Venture Beyond Limitation. Let's go.